So divorce papers have now been filed in Washington, D.C., and the wife and mom says her political consultant husband left her for Representative Ilhan Omar. She's a doctor. She says her cheating spouse, Tim Mynett, told her in April, "I'm having an affair with a Somali-born U.S. representative. I'm not going to tell you who, but she's Somali-born. She's a U.S. representative. She's from Minnesota, and you probably can't figure it out. But I love her. I love her." So he told her, and then he ditched her. What'd you say, Stu?
I like the character that is. I've never heard the person speak, and I kind of like the way you've made him sound.
I'm sure that's how he sounds.
Why, though? There's no real reason. He sounds like the guy who's saying Ilhan Omar in the song, which I don't know if that's coincidental.
I'm in love with Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, okay, I like it.
So anyway, so she's a physician. She's 55. He's 38. That has nothing to do with it. That has nothing to do with it. 55, I always wanted, when I was a teenager, I said, I want to be married to a 55-year-old woman. So it's a dream come true, but has nothing to do with that. So they have a 13-year-old son together, and he works as a left-wing Democratic supporter. He works now for Omar. Oh, yeah, I'm working for it. He works for Omar, and he also coincidentally worked for Keith Ellison, which is, what a coincidence, you know? Seriously. So those are, socialists run in packs, and they pool the same resources. And if you're allegedly stealing money or allegedly doing something, on the side, I don't know what you're talking about. I just love her. You have to get creative, and you have to make connections. Without Chakrabarty sank from the, what's its face, the
Young Turks.
The Young Turks.
The genocidal people that killed 1.8 million innocent citizens.
The organization named after that. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Without Chakrabarty, Sank wouldn't have been able to co-found Justice Democrats. And without those two, AOC's boyfriend would have lost out on thousands. Wait a minute. Now, there are two socialists that I've been keeping my eye on. One of them is a squad member, Ilhan Omar. And the other one is the former congressman turned Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. It's kind of creepy, the number of things they share, including Omar's new squeeze. Well, I just don't know why you keep referring. He is a squeeze, though, isn't he? They've both represented the same district. They both had tax problems. They both had campaign finance problems. I know it's shocking that all these socialists are having tax problems and campaign finance violations because they hate that stuff. We've covered Omar's tax and campaign finance problems at length, but it's curious how her predecessor, Keith Ellison, was busted for exactly the same problems. Well, I mean, Keith Ellison didn't marry his brother that we know of. Anyway, when Ellison was state representative, he was busted for having $25,000 in unpaid taxes. Omar got nailed for filing joint taxes with a man that wasn't her husband, her brother. Ellison just didn't pay any. Omar was caught using campaign funds for personal use, but several years earlier, the Attorney General now of Minnesota, the same state now that Ilhan Omar ran in, sued Ellison twice for campaign finance violations. They each apparently have the same love in their life. They love cheating the IRS. They love bending campaign finance laws. And they're both in love with the same man, Tim Mynett. Ilhan Omar. Last week, the Daily Mail released the video of Omar, actually a couple of weeks ago, exiting the restaurant in California with Tim Mynett. And they were talking about how they were, they were snuggling and they were rubbing noses like Eskimos. Cultural appropriation. They were holding hands. They were acting like a couple. And it doesn't matter. I don't care about any of this. I don't care. If they want to, they want to romp like little bunnies, let them. I don't care. What I do care is the smoke is covering what I think is the real fire, and it isn't the fire love. Mynett has a work history that shows he's a current partner at a progressive strategies company called E Street Group. Now, what do? Well, I don't know. If you go and look up progressive strategies and E Street Group, you're going to come to a website that has a single page that tells you nothing. It doesn't even have a contact. There's no way. It doesn't have an email address or a phone number, nothing. It just says accepting new clients by referral only. So in other words, you got to know a guy, because I know a guy. You know a guy? I know a guy. He can put you in touch with these guys, okay? So I don't think he's worried too much about advertising, for new clients, because he has hit the mother lode with Ilhan Omar. Since Ilhan's already been dinged for campaign finance violations, we decided to check out the FEC records to find out if there was any unusual activity between Omar and Mynett. Well, Omar's campaign has dished out over $250,000 over the past 12 months to her new alleged boyfriend. Right. I mean, you think I like chicks from Somalia? No, she's got cash. Uh-huh. Now, here's the weird thing. I mean, if that wasn't weird enough. He gets paid in multiple 5-figure payments every single month. If you look at February of this last year, $12,000, they wrote a check to him on the 7th, $15,000 on the 19th, $24,000 on the 21st. And the payments include everything from absolutely not vague at all descriptions of consulting to travel expenses. $24,000. Where are you going? The moon? Now, maybe my internal clock is a little messed up, but isn't the 2018 election over? What could she possibly be getting from this guy? You don't want to know. What could she possibly be getting from this guy where she's writing $250,000 checks? How's that possible? Now, this year, Ilhan Omar raised about $1.4 million. That means out of everything that she has raised, she's given him a quarter of everything. Usually, you'll get a bonus or you'll get paid a percentage, but it's not 25%. I could see giving him, that kind of money if, he helped raise $10 million. But 1.4, the math doesn't add up. And this kind of spending is unusual for congressmen, especially freshman congressmen. If you look at Dan Crenshaw, his FEC filings, he hasn't spent more than $1,600 for a single payment the entire year. There is one entry for fundraising consulting. He wrote a check for $130. $130. Omar spent $250,000 to one guy. I'm going to go out on a limb and say something's weird. I mean, that's a lot of exotic oils, or I don't know. I'm just saying. $250,000. Now, before Mynett met Omar, he was employed by Keith Ellison. This is the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee labeling Mynett as Ellison's main point of contact and his national finance director. Now, it's really weird that Mynett, when you look at his resume, doesn't reference Ellison at all. You look at his LinkedIn page. No, Keith Ellison. No, I have no idea. What? He was also, while he was the campaign finance director for Ellison, he was also the head of his own company, the Mynett Group. And like Ilhan Omar, Ellison pays this guy a lot. Tim Mynett was Ellison's third highest paid expenditure over the past 2 years, $174,000 in 2018. This seems like a racket. His FEC filings look identical to Ilhan Omar's, $9,000 payments every month going all the way back to 2015. In 2014, Ellison paid Mynett $92,000, and this was during the same period when Mynett was working on Ellison's staff. So is there a racket going on here with fundraising consulting? Is this big business? And if it is a racket, what's going on? There's a lot of money that is changing hands. And this money, they've tried to hide. This money, they put in these, what do you call them, Stu? Those front, the PACs. The money came from a PAC. So you give your money and you're like, I want to give Ilhan Omar money. And then you're like, I want to give her even more, but the law won't let me, so I'm going to give it to a PAC. That PAC, strangely, is the one that is paying his salary. He works directly for the congresswoman. How's that working? Something is wrong with Ilhan Omar. Something is wrong with Keith Ellison. And Tim Mynett, I'm sorry. I mean, he might be okay in bed. I don't know. But that's not what's causing this love affair. There's something deeper.